I'm Megan, and I work for Cargill, which is Nutrina Feeds, and I do the Northeast Georgia region. That's my territory.
And I'm Madison. I also work for Cargill. I'm an equine field rep, and I cover most of Alabama and part of the panhandle of Florida.
Well, thank you ladies for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
So today we're going to talk to you about reading a feed tag and how to pick a feed for your horse. We'll start out with some of the different forms of feed. So the most common is probably a pelleted feed, similar to this. And then you have a textured feed, which is going to look something kind of like this, and you'll see oats and pellets in it. And then you have a more wet pelleted feed with beet pulp that's more beet pulp based. And so there's some of the varieties of feed. Okay, so some of the basic things that you see on a feed tag are the brand of the feed, the type of feed. You'll see a guaranteed analysis, ingredients, and the feeding directions.
Some other things that you'll notice on your feed tag are going to be crude protein levels, amino acid levels, and your vitamin and mineral packages as well. And those will vary depending on which feed you decide to choose for your particular horse.
So, big question, how do we decide when we go into the feed store, out of all the different types of feed, all the different kinds, how do we know what feed is best for our horse?
So I would say there's a couple very key questions that you need to either ask yourself about your horse or that you need to help somebody else answer about your horse. Such things like, what breed is your horse? How old is your horse? What kind of work level is your horse in? What is their forage situation? Are they getting hay all the time? Are they out on green pasture all the time? And these are certain questions that we ask that can help us determine which feed would best suit your particular situation. So for example, an older horse might need a little bit more fat in their diet. Usually older horses have a little bit harder time keeping weight on, so a senior type feed would be a good type feed that is highly digestible and has fat to support their overall calorie intake.
Whereas a horse in high work that you're competing on or training is going to need higher energy, so you're going to look at something with a higher protein and higher fat level to meet those needs of that horse. There's also some supplements. I know that there's a lot on the market. When you're choosing a supplement, I think the best thing to do is just do the research and really make sure what your need is for that horse, and that supplement's going to meet that need. So for a maintenance horse, a lot of times these horses are out in a pasture or being fed hay, and they stay pretty healthy on that. So all you're doing with a feed in this situation is making sure they're getting the vitamins and minerals and amino acids that they need. A lot of time a balancer is really good for this, to make sure that they're getting their needs met but not really gaining any weight because they're not needing to gain weight. A lot of horses that you see that are in maintenance are overweight.
Another type of horse that we often see are horses that maybe have some special needs, such as insulin resistance or tying up syndrome or even laminitis. So that horse, we would like to keep their sugar and starch intake very low and actually add more fat to their diet. So that's another thing that you would want to look at on your feed tag, are your sugar levels and your starch levels.
So going more in depth into the feed tag, on the guaranteed analysis, the big things that you're going to look for are the crude protein, the fat, and the fiber. So the crude protein level, a lot of times you look at this because horses that are in high work need more protein, whereas horses that are just in maintenance or aren't working at all aren't going to need quite as high of a protein, which kind of goes to the same thing for the fat. The fat level on some horses, like senior horses and horses that are in work, you're going to need a higher level of that versus horses that are just in maintenance, staying in the pasture or are just being trail rode. Another thing that you look at are all the vitamins and mineral pack. A lot of times, depending on the feed, this is going to vary a lot. Horses that are in work do require a higher level of the vitamin and minerals to build muscle and maintain a well-balanced body. So that's extremely important to look at. Another thing we can look at are the ingredients. Some horses are very sensitive to molasses, so that is when you can look at if you're going to feed a pelleted feed versus a textured feed, because most textured feeds do have molasses in them, and so depending on your horse's needs, you will need to be cognitive of what is in the feed.
Another important thing to look at on your feed tag is your amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks for your proteins. So you could have high level of protein in your feed and have a limited number of amino acids and not be utilizing the proteins efficiently. So you also want to look at how many amino acids are guaranteed in your feed. A basic feed usually allows between 1 and 2 amino acids. When you get into your more premium type feeds, you can get up to even 4 guaranteed amino acids, which just means that your proteins are being utilized
So
better.
looking at this feed tag, right up top is always going to be your crude protein right here. And then here's your amino acids, so your lysine, methionine, threonine, and tryptophan. And then you have your crude fat right down here. This one's a 10%. And then you have your fatty acids right here on this feed tag, and then your fiber. After that, you'll have most of your minerals and vitamins and everything through here. And that those are listed lower because, like I said, the biggest things that we're going to first look at is the crude protein, the fat, and then the fiber on this. And then you can kind of start looking at the other things that you're wanting to get in your feed.
So on this feed tag, you'll see that your crude protein is, again, your number 1. This feed is a 12%. And then in this particular feed, you're only going to have 2 amino acids. You're going to have your lysine and your methionine. And then below that is going to be your fat and fiber. So your fat on this feed is an 8%. And then you'll notice that on this feed, you don't have as many vitamin and minerals as the feed. So when you first start looking at the front of your bag, you're going to notice a couple things. You're going to notice the name of the feed and also the form of the feed. So like this feed says perform textured. You're going to see on this one it says active pellet. Some other things that you're going to notice right off the bat are going to be your protein, fat, and fiber are usually printed right on the front of the bags. So it's an easy way to look right away and know what you're kind of looking for. And then going from there, you're also going to see some highlighted features within that specific feed. For example, on your Safe Choice Perform, you're going to notice that it says it's the highest calorie feed in the Safe Choice lineup. On your Triumph, you're going to notice that it says controlled starch formula with prebiotics for healthy digestion. So just a few extra added things that you might be looking for that you'll notice right away. So now that we've chosen the feed that we're going to feed our horse, the next question is how much are we going to feed our horse? And this goes back to talking about, is our horse doing a lot of exercise? Are they very easy keepers? Are they very hard keepers? So that will depend on your particular horse. Every feed bag has feeding rates directly on the bag that will help you understand how much to be feeding your horse. So for example, on this particular feed, a maintenance / horse that's not really doing anything or that's injured, that would weigh about 1,000 pounds, would get 7.5 pounds of feed per day. It's easier to go by pounds than it is by scoops because pounds are the same across the board, where everybody might have a different version of what a scoop is. So we highly recommend using pounds, and that is also how our feeding rates are calculated on the bags.
So there's a lot of supplements out there, and if you feel like top dressing your feed, there's a couple reasons that we can do this. All horses do not need to be supplemented, and a lot of times your feed is adequate in this situation, but there's other reasons to supplement, like joint support or digestive support, or if your horse might need a little extra protein or fat in their diet, there are supplements out there that can help this. So this is a supplement for digestive support. So on the bag you'll still see where it has the protein, fat, and fiber. But what you're looking for in this is more of a support for the digestion. So on here it says it helps maintain your gastric pH. So this is going to help somewhat combat some of those horses that are prone to ulcers. But you know, when you're looking for a supplement, you're just looking for a high quality product that has a good amount of research. You know, it's got a good renowned name to it. So do your research on your products before you go putting a lot of money into supplements, and really evaluate if your horse is in need of a supplement or if the feed is doing everything it needs to do for you.
So we've been talking about our complete feeds, but some horses don't necessarily require a complete feed. Those might be your easier type keepers that don't require the calories that some other horses might. And for those situations, there are also products that are called ration balancers. So a ration balancer is low calorie. However, it is a high concentrate in nutrients. So your horse is still getting all the nutritional requirements, just not as many calories as you'll find in a more complete type feed. So on this feed, you'll notice that the protein is a 30% protein and only a 5% fat. So this type of balancer you would feed in a very low feeding rate. So a typical horse would get between only a pound and 2 pounds max per day.